Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We are starting to see it. Smoke on the horizon drifting up from controlled burns. Whether it's a small brush pile or you're burning your entire field, we want to make sure you're safe and successful with your end results. Here's SUNUP's Dave Deacon and our Extension Fire Ecologist, John Weir.
It's getting dry across the state, and John, a lot of folks are wanting to see some of this dormant grass gone, but this really is not the time of year to get out there, but it is the time to start planting for burning.
That's exactly right. This isn't a time of year that traditionally most people burn here in the state, in the region, but it is the time of year that we need to be planning for this spring. So if you're planning on burning coming up, late winter, springtime burn, February, March, April time frame, we need to be planning now. This is a time that we should be going through writing fire plans if we have a written fire plan, or getting some assistance from local extension office, NRCS folks to help write plans, but also thinking about fire breaks, putting those fire breaks in and getting them in, because again, good fire breaks make good burns. Also, it's the time of year, you may have some of your equipment, time to, you got downtime in the shop, get your fire equipment out. Also think about winterizing your stuff, so that way you don't have pumps bust and freeze up, hoses, nozzles, things like that. But also it's time to go through and check all that stuff and make sure it's all running and have it all getting it ready for this coming burn season.
Whenever it comes to preparing a burn plan, what are some of the criteria that go into that? So
on preparing a burn, what a burn plan does, it gives you a written document to help you think through that process. Now in Oklahoma, there's not a burn plan that is required by law. There is a burn plan form that is required you're supposed to give to your local fire department. It's just a one-page form. That is not a burn plan, but a burn plan helps us think through step by step about who do we need to notify before we burn? Who's our local fire departments? Who's our neighbors we need to burn or notify before we burn? Also, it'll help us think about wind direction, how we want to burn this, not only for smoke management, so we can manage our smoke. That's the biggest thing, picking a good wind direction to manage that smoke, to keep it off of roads, keep it off of town, to keep it off of neighbors. So we need to think things through. It's just a thought process of thinking things through of how this burn can be conducted safely. Also, how it can be conducted a lot easier and simpler and not as much stress and problems.
And when it comes down to go day, there are burn associations to help with this.
You bet. We've got 21 burn associations scattered around in about 36 counties here in Oklahoma. Again, I got a text from one of the burn associations just the other day. It's doing the same thing, saying, hey guys, we need to start planning for our burns this spring. And that's the time of it is. And those burn associations are groups of landowners that work together to help each other burn. They, equipment, labor, pool those resources together, and that helps reduce risk, makes burning simpler, makes burning safer and easier. So, again, check and see if there's a local burn association in your neck of the woods, and get with county extension, local NRCS folks. They usually know who's all active in the burn association and who you can contact if there's one in your county.
So when it comes down to it, it really is the preparation this time of year to take the steps, so it is a prescribed burn, not a hey, let's just throw a match out there.
That's exactly right. And it is, it's the little things and that little bit of preparation, just like everything else that we do in life. A little bit of preparation goes a long ways to make things safer, make it simpler, make it easier, less stressful, those kind of things on the day of that burn. So again, the more you do prior to that burn, the simpler it should be the day that we do that burn.
Well, thank you very much, John. And for more information about prescribed burns, or to see if there is a prescribed burn association in your area, contact your local county extension office or go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu, for more information.
Welcome to the Mesonet Weather Report. I'm Wes Lee. December has arrived, and with it came cooler than normal air for a change. The average statewide highs should be around 55 degrees, and most of this past week was spent below that. We have now reached the freezing mark in all of the Mesonet sites. This map shows the last holdouts of Ardmore, Durant, and Hugo had spent 2 days below freezing as of December 1st. Of course, as usual, the Panhandle has the most days. As cool as this week has been, it was a marked change from most of November. This map shows that the average high temperatures for the month was mostly 3 to 4 degrees above normal. This may not seem like a lot, but averaging this warm over an entire month means it was really warm. This map for the year to date shows us with the blue bars the actual statewide average monthly temperatures and the orange bars the long-term average. We have spent 6 months below normal, shown by the blue arrows, and 5 months above normal, shown by the orange arrows. Where will December come in? If you remember, Gary showed us a warm predicted winter forecast last week. Looking at the forecast map for next week, the yellows and reds over Oklahoma indicate that the warm weather will indeed be returning. Now here's Gary discussing the rainfall and drought picture.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, we finally got a good bit of moisture across western Oklahoma, a lot of that in the form of snow, but we'll take anything we can get. Not enough to help this week's map. Maybe next week we'll see some improvements in the drought monitor. Let's take a look at this week's and see where we're at, though. Well, the area of the state we've been concerned with over the last couple of weeks is south central Oklahoma. Now we see a larger area of moderate drought down in that region, surrounded by a larger area of abnormally dry conditions as well. So that's new for over the last couple of weeks. And then over western Oklahoma, we still see the same old picture we've seen for months and months. Moderate to severe to extreme drought across parts of that region, and then some abnormally dry conditions that were threatening to go into moderate drought in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully that moisture's helped. Let's take a look at the USDA's topsoil moisture map. This is the last map of the season. This is percent short to very short for each state. 43% for Oklahoma, up 2 from last week. Not good, but definitely better than what we see around us, Kansas and Texas, but especially better than Colorado and New Mexico. Same map, last map of the season. This is for winter wheat conditions, percent poor to very poor. Only 12% of the state's winter wheat considered in poor to very poor conditions. Again, better than Kansas and Texas, and definitely better than Colorado, where the drought conditions are much worse. Let's take a look into the future. We see from the Climate Prediction Center these outlook maps, the temperature map, again for December, increased odds of above normal temperatures across the entire state of Oklahoma, but especially for the northwestern 2/3 of the state. For precipitation, increased odds of below normal precipitation, not only across all of Oklahoma, but really much of the western 2/3 of the United States. Now you'd think that would end up in being a bad December drought outlook map, but considering that is the December map and it's the time of the year where drought has a hard time developing, the Climate Prediction Center doesn't really see any further drought development, but also no improvement. Still a lot of December left, so we'll have to see where that drought map ends up. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We're joined now by Dr. Amanda Silva, OSU's Small Grains Extension Specialist. Amanda, give us an idea of how things are looking for the Oklahoma wheat crop as we head into December.
Yeah, so I am hearing anything from good-looking wheat fields to some fields with inconsistent emergency or like patchy stands. I just talked to our area agronomist for North Central today, and the wheat's looking good up there. It's growing. I also talked to one of our cooperators in Walters, and there we are seeing more of those incomplete stands and patchy stands as well.
And you're kind of seeing that in your own research trials, right?
Yeah, so it does depend when it was planted. So here our forage trials that was planted a little earlier. I mean, it's showing a good growth, but some of the wheat that we planted when it was really, really dry, and then it got that icy storm on top of it, emergence is not the greatest, so it's really incomplete. We are seeing very incomplete stands, but some of our wheat that was planted here, it's looking better, it's looking good. So it does depend when it was planted, the soil type, and yeah, it varies.
What are you and your extension colleagues, what kind of advice are you giving them? Are some people thinking about replanting?
So I'm hearing that some areas that really got those patchy fields, so patchy stands, they are thinking about replanting those areas. One of the advice I would have is just to increase that seeding rate to make sure it compensates for the lower tillering production at this point. In fact, we are putting a late planted study that we'll be planting here soon, just to look at potential management practices that we should be looking at, differences among varieties and seeding rate when planting late.
Are the moisture levels to blame for some of that lack of growth, even though we've seen more rain lately?
Yeah, at planting it was really dry, so that's what it was causing the uneven emergency. So some of the fields we found that the first leaf emerged under the soil surface, and when that happens, the plant just dies. So that was one of the most important things that we were seeing, and it was due to that dry weather. We are still seeing some areas that are a little dry, but I'm seeing good soil moisture. I am hearing that there are good soil moisture out there, but of course it depends, right? Some areas are really dry still, but overall I think we got some good soil moisture right now.
Okay, thanks for the update, Amanda. We'll see you again soon.
Well, the last time we talked to our forage system specialist, Dr. Alex Rocateli, we were talking about prepping fields for interseeding wheat into Bermuda. So Alex, you actually have some forage trials out here right now now that the wheat has already been interseeded and is coming up. So talk a little bit about what you have going on.
So this is a research that I'm developing that the main point here is to see how is the best system to extend forage production on Bermuda grass pastures. So as you can see here, I have different types of Bermuda grasses, and in each one of them I split it on 3 different fields, where in 1/3 of the field we interseeded wheat, and in the other one we stockpiled Bermuda grass, and the other one, as I mentioned, is just a control, where we harvest Bermuda grass for hay, we graze it during the summer, but during the fall and early springing we have that, I would say, as we can say, fallow, nothing is happening. So
before we actually get into the weeds with this, what's the purpose or the benefit of interseeding wheat into Bermuda pastures?
Well, first thing that I would say is less money putting out hay, right? Rather than spend money or putting hay during the summer so you can have that for the winter, you can have your animal just harvesting the wheat there, or even harvesting the stockpiled Bermuda grass. So I would say it will save money on hay production.
What are some things that producers need to consider when they're actually putting the drills out and getting the seed into the ground?
Yeah, so what we used here was a no-till drill, and from what I'm experiencing here, that is essential. I mean, can you broadcast the wheat and put your animal to graze the Bermuda grass in the end and hoofing the seed in? Yes. Can you just use a conventional drill? Yes, you can. But that might come as a result like interseeded wheat that is pretty much sparse. In some locations where your Bermuda grass turf was a little weak and there was open space with the soil, you may have some wheat coming, in other places not. Now when you have a no-till drill and the cutting disc can really cut through the turf, and you can place the seed about 1 inch, 1.5 inches, and after the closing wheels of the no-till drill can come and close that pretty okay, I mean you can have a good stand coming up, and as you can see, an even stand coming up.
So, as the study's going along, what's your kind of ultimate goal for this? What do you want to give out to the producers?
So my ultimate goal here is, first, to really find a system that works better on different locations here in Oklahoma. Perhaps in the eastern part of Oklahoma, where we have more rainfall, well, we can go wheat and after Bermuda grass, and we won't have much impact on Bermuda grass production, right, during the summer. Now, when we start to go central to a little western Oklahoma, this system may work better with a stockpiling Bermuda grass or with other small grains that in future are gonna be trying. So my ultimate goal here is to find different systems that will fit in different locations here in Oklahoma.
Alrighty, thanks Alex.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Alex Rocateli, Forage System Specialist here at Oklahoma State University. And if you'd like some more information on interseeding wheat into Bermuda grass fields, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Someone once said that success occurs when preparation meets opportunity. Well, the opportunity that I'm thinking about today is what's going to happen in the upcoming spring calving season. Even though we're several months away for many Oklahoma producers in terms of the start of the spring calving season, now is a good time to do our preparation and get ready for what's going to take place. I'll guarantee that there will be some heifer in your herd that didn't read the gestation tables in the Stockman's Hand Guide, and she'll want to calve about 4 days ahead of when you expect her to. That's why it's important now, I think, to go out through where you're going to have these cows and heifers during the calving season and check the gates to see that they're all in good working order. Check the squeeze panels that you might be using as you bring that cow or heifer that's needing some assistance up and you're going to secure her in the corner, and you have that squeeze panel that you're going to use to keep her in place while you do examination and perhaps help pull that baby calf that's needing some help. In the case of the calving shed, if you're lucky enough to have one, is that a place where you often store equipment during the off season? Do you have it full of such things as steel posts, barbed wire, grass seed, or maybe even motor oil that you use on your farm equipment? Well, now I think it's a good time to get that area cleaned out, store those pieces of equipment in another place so that you don't have to make that move at the time when that cow or heifer is needing your help immediately. It's a whole lot easier to go through and check the equipment, to check the gates, the squeeze chutes during a sunny December afternoon than it's going to be in that middle of the night, in the middle of the winter, when you need to have that done in a very short period of time. And one more thought to think about in terms of the upcoming calving season. As you look back to last year, did you have an inordinate amount of calf diarrhea or calf scours on your place? If that's the case, I would suggest that you spend the time and go visit with your local large animal veterinarian about what other management practices you might use to try to alleviate the incidence of calf scours. And that may include a vaccination for the cows, and that has to be done in some cases 6 or more weeks ahead of the start of the calving season. And so now's the time to visit with a veterinarian about whether that's necessary on your particular situation. I think if you'll go ahead and get the preparation done now, when the weather's still something that we can work with, then we'll be in a situation where we'll have the best chance for success during this upcoming calving season. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Well, we stepped into December, and Derrell, where are we as far as the cattle and beef markets go as we move on into December?
You know, right now we look pretty good. We've seen some nice, positive moves in these cattle markets. Feeder cattle markets have generally improved, especially the calf markets here in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Fed cattle prices are kind of grinding their way to somewhat better prices. Box beef prices have been very strong. So, we're moving into the last part of the year here in pretty good shape.
So are we still moving in that direction when it comes to beef supply?
You know, beef production is actually up a little bit, which, you know, again, that speaks well to the higher box beef prices. Slaughter is still down a little bit, although it depends on what category you look at. In recent weeks, steer slaughter's been up, but heifer slaughter's been down. Beef cow slaughter is coming in very close to year-ago levels here. And the overall, but of course, carcass weights have been high. They've probably peaked seasonally, but they've been very high. So the bottom line is beef production has been up about 1.5% here in the last 6 weeks or so.
Well, that's good news. So there's the supply for it. Is there a demand for that beef?
Well, again, the box beef price has been strong. In fact, somewhat remarkably strong. Probably we will see that pull back a little bit, but you know, I've been watching different product markets to try to assess kind of beef demand this year. Ribeyes have been very strong, for example, but with food service curtailed and you know, restaurants being diminished, we've got you know, kind of surging COVID issues right now. We've got colder weather, which shuts down outdoor seating, and so things like ribeye or tenderloins are actually down from last year. On the other hand, grocery store demand remains very strong, and consumers are actually kind of stocking up a little bit. So we're seeing some good, strong demand for some of the end meats as well.
That's something that I first learned about during the shutdown earlier this year. The demand of a restaurant versus the consumer, is that something that could be adjusted as we move into 21 next year?
Well, I think that's part of the issue. You know, wintertime beef demand is a little different composition of products, if you will, and we've got some challenges ahead. Certainly as we look towards next year, there's reasons to be cautiously optimistic. I think the wintertime might be a little bit rough and potentially pretty risky, but you know, obviously we hopefully have a vaccine coming that's going to change the picture as we move through 2021. Not only that, the beef supply fundamentals are looking a little bit better in general for next year. Export markets will probably recover somewhat. So there's reasons to be cautiously optimistic, but there's a lot of risk and a lot of uncertainty, particularly here in the short run.
Now, on the other side of that, the cattle producers are putting cattle out on wheat, and there is that cautious optimism from the folks that I've talked to. What advice do you have for those cattle producers as they move on out of 20 into 21?
Well, I think the volatility is still the big issue. There's a lot of uncertainty, even though, you know, sort of on net, the picture looks somewhat positive right now, but there's a lot of risk in this market. So, you know, we've seen futures markets extremely volatile. And what that says is when, you know, if you need some risk protection, when you get those opportunities, you better take advantage of them, because they're certainly likely to be more of that volatility. So I think risk management is going to play an even more important role than normal in the next few months or so.
Thank you very much, Dr. Derrell Peel, livestock marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Well, last week, Kim said that the KC contract was going to break out of its pattern. So, Kim, did it?
Yes, it did. It had two patterns going. One was an uptrend that was started last August. It popped out of that uptrend. It's on a sideways movement now. And then it had a short run sideways trend that was going in a flag. And that means each high is a little bit lower than the previous high, and each low is a little higher than the previous low. So it narrows down there. It popped out of the bottom side of both of those, so it broke down. It broke the uptrend, that long run uptrend, and it came out of the flag on the downside, and that's bearish.
So, you know, with that in mind, what do you expect wheat prices to do?
Well, after it did that, it went down. It went through one other support price, that 546 on that July contract. It popped through that 546, was down it for one day, came back and tested it. We're going to have to see if it stays below that 546, then we could lose another 40 cents. I don't think so, but it's possible. I believe we're probably going to stay near the range that we've been trading in over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
So last week when we talked, we were talking about 2021 prices in regards to wheat that's in the bin. So what do you expect the market's going to be offering for harvested wheat?
Well, during December, it's a tough month to try to predict prices or anticipate what's going to happen, because it's a holiday season. So Decembers are normally, you don't get big moves. You just kind of wallers around. You'll have some producers coming in that are selling to get holiday money. You'll have some importers coming in and buying the usual business stuff. But December's a tough month. I don't expect much in December. unless there's a big surprise in the market, and I just don't see where that come from.
You know, before we let you go, let's talk a little bit about corn and beans. What's going on there?
Well, if you look at corn and beans, corn this last week broke the uptrend on that, so corn's got a sideways pattern. We'll have to wait and see where it goes. Again, I don't expect it to move very much. We are in December. In December, you can break through those support and resistance points, and then they'll just last a day or two, and then they'll come back into that normal pattern. Soybeans still has that uptrend going, and I think that's positive. A lot of it's going to depend on what happens with China. China hadn't been in the market much recently. They come back in the market, we could get some rallies. If they stay out of the market, we could waller sideways to a little lower. Really, the thing to look for is January 1. Once we get through this holiday season, get back to normal times, see what happens after the first of the year.
So what about cotton? Is cotton still on that slow, steady uptrend, or is it starting to level off or even dive down a bit?
I think cotton's leveled off. Over the last several weeks, it's just been sideways on that futures price. There has been no surprises coming on the market. I think we can just continue to see that sideways movement.
All righty, thanks, Kim. Kim Anderson, Grain Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime on our website, sunup.okstate.edu, and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.